Abbotsford Canucks fall 3-2 in overtime in Charlotte. The AHL final heading back to the Fraser Valley tied at 1 win apiece. We're breaking down Game 2 right now on Rinkwide. And we welcome you inside the Rinkwide studios on a Sunday afternoon. Happy Father's Day, everybody. The Abbotsford Canucks looking to take a 2-0 series lead on the Charlotte Checkers. Opportunity was knocking as they went to overtime for a second straight game. Unfortunately, Abbotsford comes up on the short end of the score. The Checkers clearly the better team over the course of 63 minutes in this one, and really over the course of the first two games of the series, but mission accomplished. Abbotsford gets the split out on the road, and now they'll come back to the Fraser Valley, and we know this much, at least, that all three of the games scheduled for the Abbotsford Center will be played on Tuesday, Thursday, and next Saturday. This is Rinkwide. I'm Jeff Patterson. Irfan Ghaffar is back in studio with me here, and Rinkwide brought to you in part by Bet365, and if you want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup final, you better hurry. Won't have a whole lot longer. At Bet365, though, they've got you covered from game props to player props, totals in the money line, whatever you bet. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Irf would have been the hockey heist of the century, I think, had Abby come on home with a 2-0 series lead here. They were outplayed. They were outshot badly. Again, Artur Silov's up to the challenge, but I do think it's safe to say that the better team ended up winning this hockey game this afternoon.
Well, no question about it. Charlotte was better in all facets of the game. If it wasn't for the goalie, this game would have been completely out of hand early and often. Just look at the shot totals. Obviously, the first two games, 54-30, 42-13. I mean, you're not going to win a lot of hockey games if you don't shoot the puck on net, and that's an unfortunate part for Abbotsford in game two. They had chances. You mentioned it in overtime. We will definitely get to it, but it could have been over a lot earlier if it wasn't for Artur Silovs.
Yeah, it's strange. And look, the game winner scored on a power play in overtime. Abbotsford had the first power play of overtime. Overtime lasted 4 minutes, and there were power plays both ways. 16 seconds in, Matt Kierstead hooks Max Sasson, so the Canucks go to the power play on fresh ice. And really, the story of this hockey game was the lack of shots on goal. You mentioned it, 13 total, including none on a power play in overtime. Now, Max Sasson did hit the post. And posts were a story in this hockey game as well, as Christian Wolanin hit the post twice in the third period when the game was tied at 2. Close, yeah, but not close enough ultimately. But you got to test the opposing goaltender. Look what happened in double overtime the other night. Pretty innocent-looking shot by Danila Klimovich. It found the back of the net. This one, no shots on goal, a ton of perimeter play by an Abbotsford power play that had already scored earlier in the hockey game and had the chance right there in the first minute of overtime. Didn't score. Then Chase Waters tripped up his man, John Leonard, and that put Charlotte on the power play. And guess what? A Charlotte power play that has struggled mightily through these playoffs came into this game with a total of 3 power play goals for all of their postseason. And think about that. This is the AHL final. They've been at this a while. They had twice as many shorthanded goals here in the playoffs as they did power play goals. And what's one of the other big stories of the playoffs? Abbotsford's penalty kill. Mm-hmm. And yet Charlotte ends up scoring twice on the power play in this hockey game. 2 for 5 with the man advantage after going 0 for 5 the other night in the opener. And so special teams were in Abbotsford's favor the other day. Here, Charlotte wins the special teams battle, and they end up winning this hockey game by a score of 3-2 in overtime. So the series again deadlocked at 1. We'll get to Dave Hall from Canucks Army. He's going to join us here shortly. All of our usual features as well, the 3-star selection, the stat that stands out, and whatever else we can squeeze into Rinkwide here. And of course, we want your thoughts on this hockey game, the live chat at YouTube. It's already hopping here. Lots of people weighing in. And of course, if you want your thoughts or your questions to get to the top of the queue, hit us up with a super chat. We said on every show, our super chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. And No surprise, Hugo Mugo coming with a super chat right off the top. On to the next one. Thanks for the show. And yeah, I mean, you got to have the short memory at this time of the year if you're Abbotsford. You know that you haven't played well enough. You haven't played your best, certainly. Now, there were stretches, I thought, in the third period. They were able to control the play. Again, the shot totals may not reflect that. But there was 1 minute, 90-second span midway through the third where they were absolutely dominant. They were all over Charlotte and unable to get the go-ahead goal at that point. So this was a game that Abbotsford never led. Charlotte opened the scoring early, 3 minutes in. A minute after that, Sammy Blais tied the game up, and then Vilmer Skog put Charlotte back in front late in the first period, or midway through the first period on power play. And then it was Linus Karlsson, who was quiet the other night, and really outside of his goal, I thought he was fairly quiet again in this hockey game. He's been terrific in the playoffs. You know there's more to give there. Gets into double digits in these playoffs now with 10 goals. Scored on a power play, took the puck to the net, was able to tuck it through the pads of Kakko Kapanen. And that was it for the scoring for regulation. Nothing in the second period, nothing in the third. And then 4 minutes and 2 seconds in, Michael Benning moves in off the left wing, snaps a shot past Artur Silovs as we show you the game winner on the live stream. Unfortunate in that Phil Giuseppe along the boards had the puck, couldn't clear it, and was kept in at the point by Justin Sordoff, the former Vancouver Giant, and over to Benning, and Benning snaps it home for his 5th of the playoffs, and that turned out to be the game winner. But overall, as we said, Abbotsford's going to have to find a way. They're going to have their home fans. They're back in their building. They've been terrific on home ice all playoffs, but they are going to have to find a way to elevate here.
Well, and I think the name of the game, I mean, it's so simple. It comes down to the basic fundamentals of the game. The name of the game is shoot the puck. You have to test the opposing team's goaltender. You and I have sat here, talked a lot about teams not shooting the puck.
Yes,
when it comes to these Rinkwide postgame shows, and unfortunately, it's dripping down to the other team. Look, they're lucky to get out there with a split, but that's exactly what it is. And now you have your home ice advantage for the next 3 games. And this team has been very good on home ice. The building, is absolutely going to be bananas for the next over the course of these games. But you're right, Jeff. It's basically the fundamentals of the game: shooting the puck, taking care of your own zone defensively. You mentioned the Phil Giuseppe not being able to get the puck out on the first goal. They couldn't get the puck out either, and that, lo and behold, twice they had a chance to get it out, and it ends up in the back of your net. So it's the little things in the game. It's those little nuances that when you're as detail-oriented as Manny Malhotra, those are probably going to be corrected fairly quickly. They fly home. It's going to be a long flight to think about a lot of stuff, but that's kind of what they have to get back to. And the special teams are special teams. The American Hockey League refs love to call penalties, so you're going to be getting, obviously, opportunities once again here. And if you're able to take advantage of that, then the outcome might be a little bit different, but you can't do it because of yourselves. You're shooting yourselves in the foot if you're the Abbotsford Canucks and you're not putting pucks on net.
Well, if you hadn't watched either of these games and you just looked at the box scores, you'd say, man, this series is so tight. And it is. Overtime in this one, double overtime the other night, 4-3 win for Abbotsford, a 3-2 win for Charlotte. So they've matched each other in goals scored. There hasn't been a whole lot to give. Goaltenders have both been good. Artur Silovs has certainly been the best of the Vancouver or the Abbotsford Canucks to this point through 2 games. But as we said, a 53-shot differential through 2 games. Charlotte out shooting the Abbotsford Canucks by 53. So that tells you just how good Silovs has been, and he was again here. There were moments where he was under siege and kept coming up with the saves that he needed, that they needed. And fortunately, there was no controversy like we saw the other night. I know you weren't working with us, but I'm sure you saw the replays of the crazy sequence in double overtime. But this time, things go against the Abbotsford Canucks. And so Charlotte on the board in this Calder Cup final with a 3-2 overtime victory. Michael Benning is the goal scorer. We'll get to Dave Hall from Canucks Army here momentarily. He's a presentation of your Pacific Toyota dealers who want to tell you about the Toyota BZ4X, 100% electric and backed by the peace of mind of knowing that it's a Toyota, and that spark of joy you get when you pass a gas station knowing that you don't have to stop. There's the added perk of being able to access HOV lanes when driving an EV, even when you're alone in the vehicle. Terrific cargo capacity in the BZ4X, room for all of the kids and their equipment, sporting gear, golf clubs, camping equipment, whatever. You name it, it's there. You can fit it in the BZ4X. Plus, It can handle any terrain, so it can take you from the city to the slopes or wherever your life takes you. And when you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive. And right now, you can finance a 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer. All right, we've had our thoughts here. Let's bring in Dave Hall now from Canucks Army. He's got Armies coming up. We look forward to reading those online a little bit later on. It's always good enough to give us a little bit of time here. And Dave, I don't think anybody thought that the Cup final would be easy. It certainly hasn't been for either one of these teams. Opportunity was knocking, though, for the Abbotsford Canucks, and unfortunately, they couldn't kick the door down this afternoon and end up giving up the winner on the power play in overtime.
Yeah, opportunity was definitely knocking, Jeff, and they didn't take it whatsoever. I mean, it's hard to win a game with 13 shots. Yes, there's some posts, but just not a very good effort, in my opinion. I thought the third, they looked good, but just overall as a game, there's just too many giveaways, too many penalties, and ultimately, Artur Silovs can only steal you so many games. So it was definitely an opportunity. Obviously, they got an early power play, as you mentioned already, in overtime, and they just couldn't capitalize. So not a great one, but series is all even now. So now you just kind of you move on, you look forward, and you head to Abbotsford for hopefully some big 3 games.
We touched on it briefly, but I just want to get your thoughts. I mean, how many of these have we done where we have rang the bell and sang the praises of the Canucks penalty kill, and yet look at the final box score? This Charlotte team that has struggled so mightily on the power play here in the playoffs found a way to get it done twice with the man advantage in this hockey game, and certainly that ends up being one of, if not the biggest storyline.
Yeah, we knew they weren't going to be perfect forever, and obviously we saw in the Stars series that that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and obviously, with the overtime winner there, as you already kind of mentioned, Phil Giuseppe with a pretty clear opportunity to clear the puck there, and he just couldn't get it done. And so, you can't really fault Artur Silovs on that one. That's just a nice shot, and eventually penalties were going to get you. You can't be taking. It's so hard to get a penalty called in overtime, and so to take an offense or defensive zone tripping call while on the power play on yourselves is just unfortunate. So yeah, like I said, you just got to move on.
What do you equate it to, the lack of shots? And the first I mean, look, they win the first game, but they are heavily outshot in that hockey game. And if you go and look at this game, and they were easily the second best team on the ice. It wasn't even close. So what do you do? Are they overmatched? Is Charlotte this good of a hockey team, or is there something else you think?
It's a good question, to be quite honest. Like I personally, I don't think they're overmatched. I mentioned it last show. I think as a matchup, I think they're quite even. Back in the Texas series, they had a lot of offensive heavyweights up front. Mm-hmm. I think. In my opinion, I think this Checkers team is sort of built a little more like Abbotsford, where it's 4 lines that are gut checking and different players chipping in at times. So I don't think it's a matter of overmatched. It just seems it's almost like they're just working the perimeter a little too much, and they're just having troubles driving the net and getting into the soft spots of the net, or the hard parts of the ice. So. It's something that, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to explain really what the hell is going on here, but they just can't seem to get that puck. Of course, they did have some chances, and Post did play a pretty big storyline in this final, but it is just odd. You can't win a game with 13 shots, right? So.
Jeff mentioned Linus Karlsson a little bit earlier, a guy that we've talked about, and obviously by far has been their best player throughout these playoffs besides Artur Silovs, but a little bit quiet here the first couple of games. What'd you make of his performance?
Yep, you nailed it. Just quiet again, and luckily for his sake, he scored that goal, because he was pretty much the direct reason why they or not the direct reason, but he was a big reason why they scored that first goal. Just a brutal giveaway in the defensive end. Took a pretty unnecessary cross-checking penalty just a few shifts later, and of course he scores. But other than that goal, that was pretty much all you really saw of Linus Karlsson, and that was his only shot of the game. And we're talking a guy who has 10 goals, which now leads the Calder Cup playoffs. So you definitely need more from him if you're going to win some games. And he's a guy that, should average at least 3 shots in the game, if not more. So to only get that one shot, yes, it was a goal, but you definitely need more from your top guy there. We
talked about it after game 1, and that was, you're playing with fire a little bit, putting Charlotte on the power play 5 times. They didn't score the other night, including the 2 that they had in overtime. They get it right in this one. But a little bit uncharacteristic, and you mentioned Linus Karlsson, but he wasn't the lone offender.
Mm-hmm.
Some discipline issues on the part of Abbotsford in the first period, like Christian Wolanin with just a blatant slash to the back of the legs of one of the Charlotte players. There were the 3 penalties in the first period, and Charlotte did score on one of them, but I was just a little surprised. I mean, Manny coach teams generally, for the most part, through these playoffs, Abbotsford's done a nice job, turned the other cheek, whatever the case. But we saw them, and look, Sammy Blais got away from the script at the one point against Colorado, but that was sort of one man going rogue. And I do want to talk about Sammy's afternoon here. But would you agree with that? Just a little bit of a lack of discipline that we haven't seen a ton of from Abbotsford in these playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if these two correlate or not, but I wonder if there was a little bit of nerves coming from the Abbotsford Canucks in this one. I think it was a big opportunity for them. They knew the stakes. Playing in a packed crowd, which I believe it had 22 more people than last game, so it was sold out with 22 more people apparently. But I wonder if nerves played a big factor in that. Whether it was the giveaways, whether it was just the being hemmed in, and just the poor defensive plays, and then that goes down to the undisciplined calls. Because you're right, even a guy like Christian Wolanin, we don't typically see stuff like that from a guy like him. There are a few culprits on this team, but he's certainly not one. So it's just unfortunate. But at the same time, they're hemmed in a lot, and so sometimes you're going to get those undisciplined calls when you're when you're tired at the end of a shift, and you've just been trying all shift, and you can't seem to find a way to beat out your offenders. So that could have been some of it as well. They were just getting outplayed for most of the game. So.
Well, the first penalty was Sammy Blais, which was a strange call. You don't see it often. Scores a goal and then gets called for goaltender interference, all in a bang. Like he's going to the net, he puts the puck in. Generally, at the NHL level, I think that's just a goal, and they sort of look past the collision with the netminder, or they wave off the goal and say no. But it was one of those bang. Puck was in for sure, and then there was contact. So that wasn't so much discipline on the part of Sammy Blais. That was just Sammy getting warmed up and revved up for quite an afternoon. I mean, he scores a goal, which is great because we've been looking and charting that. He hadn't scored since the Tucson series. So he scores the first Canucks goal this afternoon, his 4th in the playoffs, and then he gets the primary assist on the Linus Karlsson goal. So he's in on both of the Abbotsford scoring plays and left the game early in the second period, came back, was wound up, was taking numbers and pointing at the Charlotte bench. We know that, look, he's a fiery guy. I think we saw sort of the complete Sammy Blais experience this afternoon.
Yeah, you said it. Fiery is definitely a way to put it. He was a one-man show. So that second period, that was all Sammy Blais. Like, that was stone cold Steve Austin entering back in the arena. And the best part is that he had to skate back onto the ice from behind the net. So he just enters the arena, points at it. And from there, he was public enemy number one. The crowd let him have it every single time he touched the puck. He was getting booed. It was just, and you know what? Credit to him, because he should be number one, public enemy number one. He has 4 points in this series. He's definitely been by far the team's heartbeat in the series. He has a goal and 3 assists. He's hitting everything that moves. He's getting under the team's skin. So obviously it didn't work in their favor towards a win, but at the same time, that's not like Sammy Blais did everything he could in this game, I thought. And, he really did a good job in that second period to kind of put all eyes on him and hopefully get a few looks from the NHL as well to scoop up one of those NHL contracts. So.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, and I kind of wanted to get back to that point. Like, he comes off the ice, obviously, heard Brandon Assel talking about, you mentioned it, obviously, the stone cold steam flowing, and the bench is pumped. His teammates are pumped about that. So what type of guy has he been for that team when it comes to that aspect of it, where, he's not only leader because he's doing the scoring, but he's also a leader because he's doing the dirty work that maybe some of the other guys aren't really doing?
Yeah, exactly. That's especially for the younger guys that, there's a lot of guys that maybe aren't so physical. And so every team needs a guy like that. And so, yes, he's towing the line sometimes where he crosses the line. But at the same time, you heard Landon Ferraro on the stream talking about it as well, where he used to play with him as a rookie, and he was the guy that's in the locker room. He's making everyone feel a little bit looser in between periods. He's cracking jokes, but also he's sticking up for everyone. And so he leads by example in the fact that he's not letting the other team walk all over him. And so it's definitely, you need at least one of those guys, and as long as he can do it within the rule book, I think it's great.
So Dave, series shifts, not a lot of time here with quick turnaround days between games, but that's a long way and not an easy travel day from Charlotte back to Abbotsford. The Canucks have been really good on home ice. So we have seen that through the playoffs. What do you think home ice means to this group? We've seen the atmosphere. It's going to be jammed out there. 7,000. The next 3 are on home ice. And as we said, at the very least, mission accomplished in getting the split. They come back in a 1-1 tie, 3 in a row, but things do have to change. They've got to find a way to get to their game a little bit more. What difference do you think home ice can make for the Abbotsford Canucks?
Yeah, I think it'll be nice to get back to the 18-degree weather with the nice West Coast breeze, so that they're not playing in such muggy conditions. But yeah, I think they've just been so comfortable in front of the Abbotsford Center fans, and I just think it'll be a nice reset for them to kind of take a few days on the plane, come back, regroup, and just fuel off. Which we've heard a few of the players already say in their post-game interviews, just how much it really does fuel them, and so it's a really nice advantage. Although they don't have technically home ice advantage, it's really nice to have that 3 games, because now they got 3 games to close it out, and so it's just going to be huge. And like I already mentioned, they've already fed off the fans so well. So I think they're going to be playing. I think they're going to put on a show for their fans, and let's just hope they can get more than 13 shots in Game 3.
Well, I'm already looking forward to Game 3, and we'll see what happens if Abbotsford can get back out in front of the series. We've mentioned this a number of times. They have not trailed at any point of a playoff series. They've trailed obviously in games and lost games, but in terms of series, they have never been behind, and they want to keep that trend continuing with a victory in Game 3. So I know you've got work to do with the Farmies, your post-game recap with all of the accompanying video. Not nearly as eventful as Friday night, but maybe that's a good thing when you're trying to put together a full post-game recap. Dave, thanks for this one. Happy Father's Day to you, and we'll catch up after Game 3 on Tuesday night.
Thank you. Likewise, happy Father's Day, and see you on Tuesday.
There you go, Dave Hall from Canucks Army, who stops by and offers up his analysis with us here on Rinkwide after each and every one of these games in the playoffs. This is the 20th playoff game for the Abbotsford Canucks. So it's been an incredible run, parts of 5 rounds. Yeah, when you don't win your division, you got to start with that best of 3, which they did against Tucson. And from there, it was Coachella Valley, Colorado, Texas, and now in the Calder Cup final against the Charlotte Checkers. All right, let's get to the 3 stars of this hockey game. The 3 stars are brought to you by Greta. We'll take a look at the 3 stars in the building, and then we'll get to our own 3 stars here on Rinkwide. The 3 stars, as selected in the building: Michael Benning, who got the game winner in overtime; Vilmer Skoog, who had one of the Charlotte goals; and Sammy Blais, the 3rd star of this hockey game. Here on Rinkwide, a little bit different. I don't know how they can overlook the performance of Artur Silovs, but so be it. Home cooking, I suppose, in the building. But Benning with the game winner. Artur Silovs stops 39 of 42. The guy has faced 96 shots through 2 games, way too many, and Abbotsford is going to have to find a way to calm things down as this series moves to the Fraser Valley. And there's Sammy Blais. So, 2 of the 3 stars are from the losing team here on Rinkwide, but that's the team that we cover and have been throughout the playoffs. And it was good to see Sammy Blais back on the score sheet, back in the goal column, and ultimately doing some of those things that make him a menace. Every time he touched the puck, crowd was all over him there, but he would eat that up, and that would fire him up, you would imagine. So there you go, 3 stars here on Rinkwide, and they are brought to you by Greta Bar, YVR, and we tell you every episode what a great place Greta is to watch sports on all the big screens. They also want you to know that they're big on team building and summer social events. So if you're looking to get your group out of the office for some corporate fun, or you've got a ball team that's looking for a place to gather before or after a game, or some sort of fundraiser, consider Greta for all the arcade games, the street food menu, weekly drink specials. Greta Bar, the place to be. 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar, let the games begin. Now, as we mentioned, I had Tyson in with me on Friday for the first game of the series. And of course, I was away for the final 3 games of the Texas series. So it's been a little while since you and I have done this, but the hosts may not be constant here on the program, but one constant in these Abbotsford playoffs of late is overtime. Lots and lots of overtime. So both games here in this series have gone to OT. Our stat that stands out, and if you've been following along closely, you probably know this as well. 4 of the last 5 games that Abbotsford has played have required overtime. Their OT record is now 4-3. So more wins than losses, but they haven't been dominant in overtime. But still on the right side of the ledger there. But 4 of the last 5 have gone to OT. Now, you consider that they've played 20 games, but it's not always 60 minutes. So double overtime the other day, like the mileage is starting to rack up on this Abbotsford team this deep in the playoffs. And I saw somebody in the chat saying, like, this isn't great for Abbotsford because they have played 20 games. I think Charlotte's played 14 now in the playoffs. And you do wonder, there was that long layoff for Charlotte, swept Laval in the last round. So they were waiting, and some wondered if there'd be a little rust there or if the rest would help them. But again, if playoff hockey is a battle of attrition, the deeper this series goes, you do wonder if some of those miles start to weigh a little more heavily on the Abbotsford side of things.
Yeah, you hope they can come back home and be in your house for at least the next 3 games, and beyond that, you have to go back to Charlotte for Game 6 and potentially Game 7. But yeah, the extra hockey, and it's not even that; it's everything that goes into it, right, Jeff? You have the game, they're emotionally invested in the full 60 minutes, and then there's a full period. It's not like it's a couple minute break or a TV timeout before the overtime. It's a full intermission. They flood the ice, to do that again, and then you're getting up for basically the start of another game. And they've had to do a couple double overtime games already. So yeah, you're definitely right. Mileage wearing a little bit thin. You may see some fatigue, but again, you play the game for this reason, and you're now 3 wins away from the Calder final. So if there's another gear that this Abbotsford team can hit, and you hope that they can hit it, they'll definitely feed off the home crowd for that.
Stat that stands out, presentation of Resurrection Spirits. And when we mention Resurrection, we talk about Bogey Juice, which is crafted with a tantalizing blend of crisp apple flavoring and kickin' ginger for that refreshing zing. Every shot of Bogey Juice, like a hole-in-one for your taste buds, sweetened to perfection with simple syrup and made even smoother with top-shelf vodka. It's the only juice that's guaranteed to make your golf buddies beam with envy, despite the score it refers to. Hope some of the guys out at Oakmont had a little Bogey Juice in their bags. They needed it.
They'd be crushing it.
There was some carnage in the final round of the U.S. Open. Check out bogeyjuice.com for more info and use promo code SP15 for 15% off Bogey Juice product and merch. So we've talked about shots on goal an awful lot in this game, in this series. You and I sat here in the studio and we watched the second period, in which Abbotsford was outshot 13-2, but even that doesn't tell the full story of the second period.
No, the beautiful part of the AHL website is you can kind of go in and look and see where the shots were from. So there was one shot that was on net from Christian, was it Wolanin?
Yeah.
It was Wolanin, that was the one on net, and then there was a dump in from center ice.
Guillaume Brisebois
with the other
center
ice.
So 2 defensemen, the only Canucks to put pucks on that net in the second period. And as I look at the final box score, there were only 2 Abbotsford Canucks that registered more than a single shot in this hockey game. Again, 13 for the team. So Arshdeep Bains had 2, and Christian Wolanin had 2. Now, Wolanin hit a couple of posts as well. Those don't count as shots on goal. So Christian Wolanin shooting the puck, but others have to take a page from his book. And as we said, Linus Karlsson, he's into double digits in goals, but he has 2 shots on goal in this series for a guy that has been the most dangerous Abbotsford Canuck throughout the playoffs. There were others. Sammy Blais scored on his only shot of the game. Max Sasson, who leads the AHL playoffs in shots on goal, he had just the one in this hockey game. Ty Mueller didn't have a shot on goal. Danila Klimovich, who scored the overtime winner the other night, got injured in the third, left for a little while, but didn't lately. Went to the bench, missed a couple of shifts, but stayed in the game. But he didn't get a shot on goal in this hockey game. Jujar Cairo, one of the veterans, noticed him. He was physical, but just a single shot for him as well. So across the board, room for improvement. And look, Manny Malhotra has done a terrific job all season long through these playoffs as well. Whenever you lose in the playoffs, it's on you as a team and as a coaching staff to make the necessary adjustments. And I do think that that's one of the things that they're going to have to figure out is how to slow Charlotte down and limit just time of possession, zone time. I know Manny in his post-game remarks the other day was asked about the 54 shots they gave up in game 1. Now, of course, that was double overtime, so that factors into the total. But even after regulation time, the shots were 31-23, so there was a decided edge. And Manny said, look, coming in, we didn't know a ton about the Charlotte team, but the book on them was volume, shoot from everywhere. So he said we weren't so worried about the shot total at the end of the night. It was more about chances. But again, when you're getting that many shots, it means you've got the puck in the offensive zone. You're putting pucks to scoring areas at the very least. And Yeah, so 13 shots. It's just not good enough. Not going to get it done. I don't think Abbotsford could defend a 13-shot effort. And yet, saying that, they're in overtime. They were one shot away from being up 2-0 in this series. But I think they'll take 1-1 out of the road, coming back home. And I know we had a question in the chat. Mel said maybe Ratu will be back in for next game. I can tell you this, that somebody I know saw Atu Ratu here in town, first of all. So he wasn't on the road trip with Abbotsford. They saw him yesterday walking with a pronounced limp. But of course, we haven't seen him since early in the Texas series when he got back, one game after missing 8. So I don't think Atu Ratu is riding to the rescue of the Abbotsford Canucks. I'm certainly not banking on seeing Atu Ratu in this series, which obviously is unfortunate for him and the hockey club. But all roads seem to lead back to a guy that can shoot the puck and generally does shoot the puck, but he hasn't a lot here in the playoffs. You do wonder if the door is open for Jonathan Lecker-Mackey to make his final debut.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, one, he's just watching. He's obviously getting the work in, after the skates, bag skates, all that, getting rinsed. But how much confidence does this kid have to throw into a final? Like you've taken him out of the lineup. You've said watch. You've said learn. You said we can't put you in, and now we're going to put you in and then give you super responsibility because we can't shoot. And he wasn't even a guy that was shooting the puck before he got taken. Or when he got taken out of the lineup, Jeff. Like known as a volume shooter, known as a guy that can ripple the mesh whenever he wants. But for him, it's been tough in these playoffs, and I think that now playing their toughest opponent, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that Manny Malhotra is going to hit the panic button. They're 1-1 in a series. You're safe if you put Lecker-Mackey in at home because then you can kind of get him in the matchups that you want if that's what you're really going to do. But then if you're doing that, who are you taking out of the lineup and are you willing to take that risk?
No, fair point. But
right?
I think it's a good point that, and maybe this was part of the strategy on the part of the coaching staff, was if he wasn't going to play, hold him out of the games on the road. You're right. At home with last change, you can dictate sort of if there are concerns about Lecker-Mackey defensively, and I'm not sure that there are. In fact, in these playoffs, I've actually noticed him more for some of his subtle defensive plays, but that's not why he was a first-round draft pick in the NHL. That's not why you're plugging him into the lineup. It is to generate offense, and it's been a tough go for him. We do end up spending an inordinate amount of time, but this guy is at the top of the list of the Vancouver Canucks prospects, and 3 wins away from a Calder Cup championship. It's all about winning. Whatever it takes to win for Manny Malhotra and the Abbotsford Canucks, and if that means that Jonathan Lecker-Mackey has to sit, so be it. It's unfortunate, and you would love this playoff charge to be on the back of your best prospect. But this is no longer about worrying about his development in the short term. Big picture, absolutely. But it's how do you get 3 more wins to get your hands on the Calder Cup.
I also think, and look, I didn't watch a lot of AHL hockey in this regular season. I don't know if this is something that happens all the time, but there's a lot of penalties called in the American Hockey League, Jeff. And even in the last series against Texas, there's like 2-3 a game, at least for either team. There's so many in the first 2 games of this series as well. If you want him to come in and give him some immediate boost there, 5-on-5, you can shelter him a little bit, but then you just have him have him at the power play, have him in a position to succeed, and you're able to control that a little bit. Penalties are going to be called, and you obviously have the opportunity to go and do that, and especially on home ice. I think it's one that they may look at. I just don't know how hard Manny looks at it.
You're so right, though, that this is the championship final. 2 games with overtime in both of them. But the power plays are 10 apiece.
It's crazy.
They were 7-5 the other night in Abbotsford's favor, and Abby went 2 for 7. This game, it was 5 for Charlotte and 3 for Abbotsford. And so on aggregate, over 2 games now, Abbotsford's 3 for 10, Charlotte is 2 for 10. But power plays absolutely have factored into the way these games have gone. And in fact, the overtime winner has been scored on the power play in both games.
Yeah.
So, that's a little bit of a surprise to me, especially for 2 teams that don't know each other, don't see each other. You wouldn't think there was sort of baked in feeling, but it is a championship series, and you can see that the stakes are high here. I will say one adjustment that I think the Canucks did a better job of in this game was when they had their own power plays, didn't give up the shorthanded chances the other night on Friday. Like, I couldn't get over how aggressive Charlotte was on the penalty kill, and any time they sensed that they would have a chance to counter, they were off to the races and had a whole bunch of good scoring chances shorthanded. That wasn't the case in this one. The chances came on the power play, and not a lot of 5-on-5 offense in this hockey game. Obviously, just the first 2 goals of the game, 1 minute and 2 seconds apart. They were both scored 5-on-5. After that, the remaining goals all coming with the man advantage.
An interesting one here for me is Abbotsford's already had to do long trips this postseason. Maybe not Tucson, but they've had to go to Texas.
Yep,
it's not an easy trip. Like, this is Charlotte's first long trip of their postseason, right? Everything's been pretty close for them for the most part, and they got to come all the way up here with the time change, with only a day in between games. Canucks have already had to do that already this postseason. So if you're tipping a cap to some, or tipping your way to hand to someone, maybe have an advantage in that, if you're looking and reaching for things, which I might be doing here, there's definitely that.
They did have to go to Laval in the last round, which, hopping across the border and into the Montreal area. So a little bit, but you're right. Nothing like this, and nothing with the time change. And now they're coming to a building that they have never set foot in, and an atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. So, look, I think every little thing matters at this stage. And if there's any competitive advantage that can be gained, then Abbotsford's got to find a way to harness all that and, put it to use. Starting on Tuesday. Again, Tuesday, Thursday, 7 o'clock starts out in Abbotsford. Saturday, which we now know is going to be necessary. So I hope you got plans to be in here next weekend. Or is that the one that
you're sitting out? Yeah,
that's right.
Okay. For that one.
But just note now that Saturday's a 6 o'clock start. So 7 o'clock, and then on Saturday, puck will drop at 6. And of course, we'll be here. Tyson will be back in for game 5, but Irf will be with me for games 3 and 4. Disappointing result ultimately, but I would say disappointing process here. And thanks to Artur Silovs, the game got to overtime, but they got to do more for the goaltender. He has been so lights out good for them in the playoffs. Need more than 13 shots. And it's as simple as that. Got to find a way to put more pucks on net. They got 4 goals the other night. Here, 2. And it's a tough way to win at any level of hockey when you're only scoring twice. And so 3-2 is the final. Charlotte wins on home ice, and a win that they had to have, quite frankly. Now, if there's a fan base in hockey that knows a 2-0 lead in the championship series isn't money, it's Vancouver or Canuck fans. But still, if you're Charlotte, you didn't want any part of coming to Abbotsford down 2-0 and Abby having 3 cracks in a row on home ice to take care of business. So Charlotte got a win that it had to have. Abbotsford got a split, so they'll come home feeling good about themselves, and we'll see where things go. Can't wait to see where things go from here, and we'll continue to document after each and every game that is played here in the Calder Cup final. Before we run, I want to mention our good friends, the Vancouver Canadians. Talk about red hot. The Seas won their 10th in a row out at Nat Bailey Stadium this afternoon on Sunday. Now, they're heading out on the road all week, but they are going to be back at the Nat soon. Next homestand starts on Tuesday, June 24th. That's against Tri-City. And that run of home games includes another fireworks night on the 26th and Marvel Superhero Day at the ballpark on Saturday the 28th. Sounds like some fun. For the full game schedule, the promo schedule, and for tickets, check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, we've said it. What do you think? Will we see a more inspired effort from the Abbotsford Canucks when they take to the ice on Tuesday night? Yeah,
I mean, look, you're going to be at home. That's the one big thing. The 7,000 plus they're going to be packed in the Abbotsford Center, are going to be loud as they have been. Incredible support that they've gotten from the people out there in the Valley has been really good. So you know that they're going to feed off that home energy. Take it to them. If you're the Abbotsford Canucks, you're the home team. They're in your barn. They've never been there before. I expect a lot of shots. I expect a lot of, aggression, playing on their toes. And yeah, I really do. I think that Charlotte's going to have to weather a storm in the first 10, 15 minutes of that game. But once it gets through that, then, once they get their game back, Charlotte does have a pretty good team. As you heard Dave Hall mention, that they are built very well. So it's going to be interesting. But I do think that, the Abbotsford Canucks at home in front of their fans, they will come out flying for game 3.
All right, Fraser Valley, the Calder Cup final is coming your way on Tuesday night. I'm sure the building will happen. We're looking forward to that one, and We'll see where things stand after Game 3 of this series. But that's going to do it for us here on this Sunday afternoon. Again, Charlotte in overtime defeats the Abbotsford Canucks by a score of 3-2. For Jacob Lazar, our technical producer, he's Irf. I'm Jeff. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Rink Wide.